afternoon everyone, and welcome to today's webinar sponsored by ultra-low-emission. This webinar will explore some of the different travel options available to individuals and fleet managers and the potential benefits of introducing them. My name is Sarah and I'm the Senior Fleet Officer here at Brake. I'm part of Brake's global fleet team where we work with fleet operators and suppliers to share resources and best practice across the industry. You should all now be able to see my presentation and hear the audio alongside it. As attendees, you are all muted, so you don't need to worry about any background noise from your offices. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions towards the end of the webinar, and there are two ways in which you can do this. Firstly, there is a chat box on the webinar panel where you can send your question at any point during the webinar. Secondly, there is a raise hand icon on the same panel. You can press this during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentations, and we will unmute you and you can put your question to the panel and directly over the phone. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Richard Green at Anglian Water, Graham Telfer at Gateshead Council, Edwin Colella at Octo Telematics, Andy Hibbert at Car and Away, and Andy Salter at DVB Media International. And a few of our guest speakers will be joining us for the live Q&A towards the end as well. So set up and founded in 1995, Brake is a national road safety charity that exists to stop the needless deaths and serious injuries that happen on roads every day, make streets and communities safer for everyone, and care for families bereaved and injured in road crashes. Brake's vision is quite simple: a world that has zero road deaths and injuries, and a world where people can get around in ways that are safe, sustainable, fair and healthy. We promote road safety awareness, safe and sustainable road use, and effective road safety policies through campaigns, community education, information and advice for organisations operating fleets of vehicles and road safety professionals, and of course by running the UK's flagship road safety event, Road Safety Week. We also provide essential support to people across the UK devastated by road death and serious injury to help them in their darkest hours. So in terms of support, we run a quality accredited free phone helpline in the UK for people bereaved and seriously injured in road crashes. You can see some information on the level of support we gave in 2017 on your screen now. In addition to the helpline, we also provide support literature and work very closely with police forces throughout the UK so that when someone does receive that knock on the door from a family liaison officer, they're providing them with best practice support literature. We campaign nationally and regionally to raise awareness among the public. An example of this is our 2016 Roads to Justice campaign, which centred around getting justice for bereaved families. This UK campaign launched outside Parliament and gained a lot of media attention, and I'm sure most of you will have seen the changes to criminal driving sentencing announced in October 2017. We are now, of course, lobbying the UK government to make sure those changes are introduced. We also do a lot of campaigning more generally on raising awareness of a range of topics, some of which you can see on the screen now. Awareness raising in education and communities is delivered through projects such as Road Safety Week, the UK's flagship road safety event, which you can find out more about by watching our latest webinar on our YouTube channel and visiting roadsafetyweek.org.uk. Each year, Brake helps hundreds of companies run road safety projects in their communities and inspire children to be safer on our roads. We have well-established events and resources to help you run activities locally to your business, and our community engagement team can help put you in touch with local schools and nurseries and give you advice on how to talk to different age groups. Or your company can work with Brake to establish your very own community project. We also share training tools and guidance on global fleet safety best practice for our Brake Professional Membership Service. We provide our members with tools to manage occupational road risk, regardless of budget, fleet size or vehicle type. And we run an annual calendar of events, including webinars such as today's, and seminars and training throughout the year. We also have annual flagship events such as our Fleet Safety Conference and Fleet Safety Awards. In addition to these events, we also produce a lot of resources for employers, including guidance reports on introducing policies and sharing best practice case studies. Alongside that, we provide employers with tools to use directly with their drivers, and you can see on the screen now some of the posters, infographics and videos which you can use to engage your own drivers. I'd now like to introduce Richard Green at Anglian Water for the first presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you to Brake for asking us at Anglian Water to introduce this webinar on the benefits of sustainable travel. This is a subject currently very close to our heart that we are passionate about, and in the process of developing our own sustainable plan focusing on all aspects of travel, whether it be minimising commercial and business mileage, reducing commute, or encouraging employees to drive less, live more. I make no apology for using some of Break's material in this presentation, which is always a great way of engaging employees and other audiences. There are numerous benefits to be gained from sustainable travel, which can have a personal, local, regional, national, international, and global impact. Sustainable travel isn't a new thing, and there are plenty of examples of where organisations have had great success and reaped the benefits of sustainable travel. But with the proportion of traffic travelling in very congested conditions predicted to more than double by 2035, the challenge remains and is growing. We can all play our part. At Anglian Water, we think of the main benefits of sustainable travel as being enhanced well-being, the removal of road risk, minimised impact on the environment, and reduced costs. The primary benefit we recognise from sustainable travel is employee well-being. Our LIFE programme aims to ensure that coming to work is a positive thing and enhances people's well-being. Travel plays a large part in this, as it can be unhealthy where it's frequent and sedentary, stressful when it's time pressured, and in case of driving, the most dangerous thing most of us will do at work. Other forms of travel, such as walking, running and cycling, can have hugely beneficial effects on all aspects of well-being, not least mental health. We also aim to have a positive impact on the communities we serve. If we can travel more sustainably, we will reduce traffic congestion, air and noise pollution, as well as risk on the roads of our customers and others travelling through our region. As per the previous slide, driving is recognised as the most dangerous thing that most of us will do at work. I think we probably all hear that a lot, but it never loses its impact. The only way of avoiding that risk completely is to remove it. Our sustainable travel philosophy is based on Break's ethos of drive less, live more. Travel and driving is still largely inevitable in order to enable the modern world's lifestyle choices and for organisations like ourselves to meet ever-increasing customer and regulatory demands. However, we can still make life safer and more sustainable by exploiting opportunities to reduce how much we drive and where we have to, doing it in a safe and sustainable way, primarily, slowly and smoothly. All travel will have some impact on the environment. Even walking, running and cycling have a carbon footprint from the clothes we wear, the showers we take or the bikes we ride. But we can minimise the impact we have by making smarter choices and planning effectively. Video and audio conferencing, combining visits to save journeys, public transport, car sharing and use of electric or hybrid vehicles can all reduce our impact on the environment. We are currently implementing a new work scheduling system that will help us deliver more work more effectively and reduce travel at the same time. At Anglian, we are committed to our Drop CO2 campaign and being carbon neutral by 2050. Reducing fleet emissions plays an important part in achieving this goal. But it's not just emissions that impact on the environment. Tyre debris is now recognised as a major contributor to microplastics in our oceans. The impact that driving has on the environment is not always obvious and often invisible, so the benefits of sustainable travel can be extremely far-reaching. Ultimately, we're all driven by customer expectations and a willingness to pay, either in the regulated or otherwise. Reducing costs in order to make efficiencies and pass those on to customers through lower charges is an essential part of the services we provide, and there is a business case for sustainable travel. Well thought through and delivered initiatives can easily make a return on investment, keeping the bean counters happy as well as doing the right thing by the planet. Less driving means less procurement of vehicles, less wear and tear, less repair and maintenance, reduced insurance premiums, reduced fuel costs, and can also have benefits linked to well-being, such as reduced employee absence and increased productivity. How many of you think of driving as dead time and have also pledged not to use the phone hands-free while driving? There are so many more value-added things to be doing with our time than driving. Sustainable travel comes in all shapes and sizes and can be very easy or very challenging. It can also be very personal and specific to individuals and organisations. 2 years ago, we partnered with Break when they first came to visit. I offered to reserve car parking spaces only to be told that they wouldn't be coming in a car and would arrive by train. At the time, I drove to the office every day and made a pledge to cycle to work at least once a week. I now do that every day, and if I need to travel further afield, my first choice is to get the train. My car largely lives on the drive now, and we are considering becoming a one-car family, and I feel better for it. I would urge you all to make the sustainable pledge, if you haven't already, both personally and within your own respective organisations. Many thanks for your time, and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thank you very much for that, Richard. Much appreciated. And next up, we will be joined by Graham Telfer at Gateshead Council.
Good afternoon. My name is Graham Telfer. I'm going to discuss sustainable travel with you from two angles, both from the council-wide fleet and also from our in-house fleet operations. I'm first interested in global warming and the greening of the planet from my outdoor experiences. This slide here illustrates the French Alps from back in the early 1900s to the present day. And as long ago as 1970s, I climbed regularly in the Alps. And as you can see these photographs, and the bottom right-hand side is a photograph from the early 1900s where people walked directly up the footpaths onto the glacier. And as you can see in the later coloured photograph to the left, how much that glacier has receded back up the valley. And that is as it is now. In the last 40 years, it's receded further to the top right-hand photograph. So if there was ever proof or evidence needed, that's absolutely clear. We'll just move on to the next slide. And this Kyoto conference was the main impetus for Gateshead to become involved in sustainable travel, because at this conference they identified a basket of 6 gases, 2 of which we've concentrated on in motor transport, which is carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide. And they are the main protagonists in affecting how we live by using transport on a daily basis. So from that initiative, we've embraced Green Fleet operations since. We have operated Green Fleet and safe driving since the early 90s. We were an early adopter of biodiesel, where we operated up to 20% biofuel, and we ran approximately 300 of our fleet vehicles on LPG. To support this, we have our own in-house driver training using SAFED model. That's a safe and efficient driving initiative run by the government. And we also use our in-house trainers also. In addition to this, we operate EVs and hybrids and stop-start technology with a carpool for in-house and the Common Wheels program, which we'll discuss later. We also, throughout the council, and the borough, we have a comprehensive electric vehicle recharging infrastructure, and being able to achieve this with a number of our partners. One of the main drivers for changing how we operate was the introduction of austerity back in 2009. And to illustrate this, we had to comprehensively review how we operated our fleet. The councils had to save over £143 million since 2010. 52% of the government grant has now stopped, and a third of our workforce, approximately 2,000 people, have took an early retirement or left the council. So that's been a huge change in how we deliver services. In addition to this, to regain some capital, we've sold over 200 council buildings. And this is supported by, in the medium term, by the Gateshead Green Plan, which ran from 2012 to 2017. And we have a longer objective of Vision 2030, where the council's ambition is to be a zero carbon neutral council by that date. However, that was originally planned prior to austerity, and it's whether we're in a position financially to be able to achieve that target. One of the initiatives for sustainable travel has been the introduction of a Common Wheels program, This is done with a partner where they supply us vehicles and we pay as you go on a car hire scheme. The cars available are approximately 6 Peugeot Ions and 20 low-emission petrol cars, hybrids. And this is to address grey fleet operations to get drivers out of older vehicles that tend to be on grey fleet into more economical and more environmentally friendly vehicles. Due to the austerity measures, over 200 employees lost their car lease benefit. They were returned, so there needed to be another vehicle, another mode of transport put in place to address this. And this is why we introduced common wheels and pooled vehicles. All essential drivers who had an enhanced rate also lost that, and that was an immediate uptake of over 500 members signed up to the scheme to ensure that they had transport to carry out their daily duties. The benefits is that they were given guaranteed parking and they were able to utilise these vehicles on demand. They also have access to electric vehicle charging throughout the borough on a demand basis. And within the Civic Centre, we have a Power Park 3-bay canopy solar charging point, which I'll show you later in the presentation, which is charged from solar power, and that can charge up to 3 to 4 cars per day, in addition to having a charging within the grid system also. The travel plan has been comprehensively updated since 2015, and the aims were to reduce the need for journeys, reduce the number of car trips we make, and encourage both walking, cycling and car sharing and the use of public transport to get out of using normal modes and personal transport. The objective was to increase the awareness of the travel plan among staff, and the second objective was to reduce the numbers travelling to and from work by car and to reduce the number of private miles used to carry out their duties. This was utilised using the Travel Smarter Gateshead website was launched, and it wasn't about being anti-car or anti-transport, it was just about making it more efficient and more environmentally friendly. And we helped staff to choose the travel based on the most efficient, healthy and cost-effective operation. Therefore, we introduced a walking system where each offices in and around the Civic Centre and out-based areas, if there was a potential to walk between these venues, then we would do it. And there's a team, as part of their remit, was to challenge this and to run events to get staff to get out and about using their feet. We also used various discounted travel, including bus passes. They have a discount for travel within the borough. We also have a comprehensive metro and bus system within Gateshead, and they get free travel when they're travelling on business use also. The Agile Working Scheme was to get staff who could work from home using technology was another option, and we also provide video and telephone conferencing, and we also staff who need iPads to communicate more effectively rather than travelling to offices or to other venues to meet can use an iPad and Skype. A communication was to provide up-to-date information and make alternative modes of travel more effective via our council email system, having monthly team briefs where Toolbox talks direct to staff, and also using the council website. And this is constantly updated and reviewed on a regular basis, both by employees and employers, are encouraged to input into the best effective way to communicate. We also promote car sharing where it's relevant, and we ensure that all the relevant insurance, MOT testing for those vehicles are utilised. All the details are registered on a database and it's used on a Go Smarter website. And we get data for fuel consumption and fuel efficient driving initiatives also. To support this, we have an ad hoc fleet driving pool, where if a grey fleet replacement via common wheels isn't flexible enough, we can supply a car on demand or a similar vehicle that will meet their ad hoc requirements. And regarding our in-house fleet operations also, I would like to give you a short summary of what we do with our fleet operations from car-derived vans up to 26-ton vehicles. All our fuel savings are achieved by our in-house driver team. We have a daily check method in place where all the vehicles are checked before they go out every day by each driver, and they have an end of use check also, so that's rigorously monitored. This is backed up by using the SAFED model from Safe and Efficient Driving. All the drivers' MPG performance is monitored, and we can see trends of excess fuel use or abusive style driving, and it's immediately addressed. All our fuel monitoring is through an MCS fuel supply program. We have our own bunkered fuel within our depots, so no one fills up outside at pump prices or from a retail site. They're all fuel from within the depots. All our vehicles on fleet are restricted to 56 miles an hour, whether that's a car-derived van or a 26-ton truck. All the eco-driving is carried out via daily walk-round checks. All operators, whether they're grey fleet operators or they're drivers on fleet or common wheels, they all have to follow this type of scheme every day. So they ensure the vehicles are safe to use, and they're also ambassadors for the council when they're out driving. And one thing this scheme has proven is drivers have come back to us and reported that their own mileage privately at home has improved by following these methods of ensuring compliance. These two slides illustrate some of the charging infrastructure we have within Gateshead. The slide on the right is the photovoltaic cell solar panel charging point. This was the first charging point that was ever installed in England at the beginning of 2008 for both private and for public use. And this illustrates two of the IMEVs that were. These are on 10 and 11 plates, and they have done over 50,000 miles each, and they have never broken down or run out of charge throughout that service. So I think that's testament to a vehicle being put in its right operation, the right environment, and it has been a very positive result. The slide on the right illustrates one of the very first rapid chargers that was installed in the borough outside of the Gateshead International Stadium, and that is available for both the public to use and for fleet operations. This is in-house, our own in-house chargers. As you can see, it's basic. There's no readout of meter. It's just a direct plug-in, and it's used on our heavier duty, larger vans. This is the EST simulator for our driver training to ensure safe and efficient driving and how to drive more appropriately. You don't have to go out and buy an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle or spend thousands of pounds. One of the best savers in any fuel or a more economic way of driving is to change your driving habits and styles. And if there was any one piece of advice, this has been the most cost-effective way of ensuring continuous driver training in a more sustainable manner. And as we come towards the conclusion of the slides, I'd just like to illustrate some of the savings we've made with the type of vehicles that we've improved from going from Euro 5 to Euro 6. And the numbers along the bottom are fleet vehicles, and the slide at the top is the MPG on some of our heavier vehicle park, which are doing just 3 miles to the gallon. And with fitting Euro 6, the most technologically advanced engine, how we were able to have a better driving style and a better economic vehicle, where we increased the mileage that we were achieving prior in a Euro 5 engine. And also the bottom graph illustrates the Euro 5 CO2 emissions from 3 years ago to the present date, where they have been dropped considerably as well, as both slides illustrate. All this data is fed back through our TriScan and MCS fuel reporting methods, utilising various technologies from onboard weighing to telematics, and we also use a telematics scheme for the route optimization also. And that concludes my short presentation, and I hope you found it useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Graham. That was a really comprehensive and detailed presentation, so much appreciated, and great to hear what Gateshead Council have been doing. We will now be joined by Edwin Colella at Octo Telematics, who are kindly sponsoring today's webinar. Edwin, next. Thank you very much.
My name is Edwin Colella, and I'm very happy to share with you these next few minutes in order to share our ideas on the benefits of sustainable travel. I'm following in your move, the business unit that is in charge of mobility and share mobility within Octo Telematics Group. And I'm very proud to be part of this webinar because of the role of BRAKE in working with communities to stop the tragedy of road deaths and injuries, and obviously make sure that this community are safer for everyone is one of the most relevant objectives that we need to follow in order to increase a really sustainable travel approach for our present and our future. It means obviously safer infrastructures, different travel choices, safer vehicles, but also safer driving behaviors and habits. And the objective of this webinar is to introduce how technology can really support and enable sustainable travel. So let's go to the paradox of the current mobility. Transportation and mobility have been and are an incredible opportunity for the human being. In the last century, mobility and transport have undoubtedly been two of the most commanding heights for economic development. Engines of both the economy and the human progress that secure the excellent results for the society. Just to mention an example that everybody might know, it took 24 hours at the beginning of last century to go from Milano to Rome, and today it only takes about 3 hours by train. The same, Edinburgh to London was 5 hours, and now it's just 1 hour. All that moves is not gold, thought. Indeed, modern mobility brought about serious issues: pollution, traffic, crashes. That's what constitutes what I call the mobility paradox. What was meant to make us better has in fact brought us to paralysis. Moreover, more than 1 million people die every year on the world's roads, and millions of people spend hours in their cars due to traffic issues. Transportation amounts to about 1/3 of the total final energy consumption in European Economic Area countries, and more than 1/5 of greenhouse gas emissions, as well as considerable part of urban air and noise pollution. So this is the paradox. The condition that was meant to increase our prosperity is currently one of the most relevant sources of complexity and tragedies. And there are many axes of intervention which BRAKE Charity supports with several activities. One of them is technology. In reality, technology is increasingly intelligent, and if supported by creativity and human-centered solution, can introduce ways to solve the problem of mobility as an intricate network. Probably we must distinguish between applied technology, namely on vehicles, and enabling technologies around the mobility needs. The former can improve energy efficiency and propulsion technology. The differences between combustion engines and electric are obviously very significant, but suffers long application times. Indeed, it is easy to understand how changing motor pools and infrastructures takes longer than a single day. Additionally, such changes implies a serious intervention of energy supply. You can make an electric cars compulsory and still have more than 98% of the supply network based on coal. And obviously, that doesn't solve the problem. It only pushes it aside. So if we speak about enabling technologies, on the other hand, these are based on the model of using information technology, data, insights, analytics to transform the mobility, and it can evolve mobility into a shorter time with less investment and much faster results. We are talking about applied technology linked to shared mobility, which is one of the components of the sharing economy framework. And this includes enabling technologies that empower car sharing, ride sharing, fleet management, and insurance telematics operations. These innovations, delivered through onboard devices or management software and mobile apps, ensure better travel management and better usage of vehicles and traffic, obviously, less pollution, fewer crashes, and better driving behavior. Overall, a great benefit for the society. Additionally, these enabling technologies can allow remote working and e-commerce processes, just to mention additional opportunities that they bring to our attention. And these are further examples of developments that, thanks to this contribution, they can evolve the mobility and try to solve the current paradox. It is simple to imagine that getting the car, going to buy milk, and returning home for everybody of us pollutes more than ordering milk online and aggregating deliveries. Obviously, there are other implications, but it is true that we need to solve, using technology, the current mobility paradox. These enabled technologies are available already, and they need only to be used in a different professional and personal mobility context. Let's take a few examples of companies using enabled technologies which we have had the opportunity to work with. In the context of car sharing, Enjoy, one of the largest European car sharing operator, is obviously offering with a service of vehicle sharing, which significantly reduce the ownership costs, reduce demand of vehicles in the city centers, and therefore the urban traffic, increasing parking possibility, offering a more flexible mobility approach, and last but not least, with less pollution. Insurance telematics is also another great enabled technology for sustainable travel. Unipol, one of the largest insurance company on global scale, is using telematics technology, helping tourists to maintain safer roads by encouraging and incentivizing good driving behavior. Efficient mobility needs to take into account hybrid and electric vehicles as well. As an example, Yuko with Toyota just started in Venice a car sharing service using hybrid vehicles that reduced both the motor pool and the overall emissions. This efficiency is also available in Zurich with electric scooters provided by Mobility, the Swiss car sharing operator, and in Valencia by Molo, the Spanish scooter sharing operator. This simplifies traffic and reduce pollution down to zero. It allows users to subscribe to a monthly payment and use the electric motorcycle as they want. And these possibilities are offered by these mobility schemes, and they're obviously pushing the overall improvement on shared mobility. Ride sharing and pool vehicles are also a simple way to move forward in the direction of sustainable travel. Huawei is the Octo ride sharing community. And with Toyota, both Octo and Toyota carpooling communities allow the sharing of rides among the employees. This increase and facilitate the possibility to share their rides. But to further increase the possibility of small community to start using these technologies to promote sustainable driving, there are also simple web-based shared mobility platforms, such as ShareMine. These platforms let small communities to build a car sharing or ride sharing service for their members in minutes, with a fraction of the cost of their more complex solution. This allows small community managers and business owners access to technology without the need to spend considerable amount of resources. We have gone through these different categories and example of technology. Now let's see about numbers, how these achievements can be really support the sustainable travel approach. If we speak about traditional car sharing in Europe, this is currently used by almost 6 million members, sharing more than 7,000 vehicles. Expected to grow to 13 million members and 145,000 vehicles in a few years from now. This could reduce the number of circulating vehicles in the areas where car sharing will be operating by 2 million, which is an incredible huge amount of vehicles on the road. Insurance telematics makes the road safer for everyone. The information collected from vehicles can be used to help understand aggressive driving, harsh braking, vehicle speedings versus posted speed limit, weather conditions, road conditions, and identify the correct behaviors and suggest better driving behaviors and habits. Using telematics for predictive analytics will help drivers to avoid congested roadways and potential hazards. Telematics can also reduce insurance and liability costs. It seems that our statistic demonstrates that telematics can help to improve driver behavior and prevent crashes up to 40% of the total cost of ownership on the vehicle. Ride sharing is also a very important technology and solution, reducing car ownership and public transportation utilization. Studies shows carpooling could reduce congestion by a factor of 3, while still serving the same number of people. Ride-sharing services have enormous potential for positive impact on the society with respect to congestion, pollution, energy consumption, and obviously everything that is around sustainable travel. The idea is the way of a zero vision or a zero objective. The complexity and the richness of the mobility have been both a driver and an obstacle to the growth of a society. Some of the related issues can be regulated, yet the strongest short-term impact can come from big data, analysis, analytics, and enabling technologies centered on the road safety, the driving behavior of individuals, pollution, and traffic. These technologies are available now as we speak. They are affordable, easy to use, and above all, they can convert and invert the trend and finally get technology out of its current paradox. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edwin. We will next be hearing from Andy Hibbert at Car and Away, who will be presenting a case study. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Andy Hibbert and I'm the founder of Car and Away, which is a peer-to-peer car sharing platform. Putting it more simply, we are like an Airbnb for cars. At Car and Away, we believe the world needs a smarter way to own and use cars. Now that's a very bold statement, but backed up with the problem we are facing, which is this. Private car ownership is broken. There are over 1 billion cars on the planet today, with another 500 million forecast by 2030. 32 million of these cars are in the UK, yet no matter where you own a car, they are only ever used 4% of the time. For the majority of their life, they are parked up outside people's homes, simply collecting dust, and yet they are costing on average £5,000 a year to own. It's pointless wallpapering our planet with more unused cars. It's simply not sustainable, and we're running out of space to park them. So we need a solution, and that's why we exist. Car and Away will revolutionise the way we own and use cars by enabling privately owned cars to be shared with other individuals who need them, connecting communities together to create great experiences through sharing. Now, we've started at airports where there is a ready-made marketplace already in place. Across the UK, for example, there are over 10 million cars parked every year at airports sitting idle. Into these airports, there is a strong demand for car rental, where existing options deliver a poor or average service at best. We believe we can satisfy this demand and deliver a much greater service by liberating these parked cars and making them available to rent. Our first airport partner is London Gatwick Airport, where we launched in December 2017. Working in partnership with Gatwick, we have developed an exciting new choice for car owners, which will enable them to do the following. Drop their car right next to the terminal, earn while they are away by renting their car out, then pick up their car fully valeted next to the terminal, making for a quick getaway to their home. You can see our product here against other products which you may be more familiar with, such as long stay parking. One of the key insights we've learned is that car owners need as much assurance as possible to help them make a decision to do this. People are coming to buy parking, and now they are potentially deciding if they want to consider renting their parked car out to make money whilst they are away. At this stage, many car owners drop into a live chat with our team, and it's here where we are able to talk about how it works, and in particular, how we use telematics in the car to enable us to see how the renter is driving. Owners really love this component as it reassures them that the car will be looked after and ultimately it will be driven well. Now, speaking of drivers and renters, we're able to attract renters by offering our cars alongside traditional car rental companies such as Avis and Hertz. We've partnered with rentalcars.com, who enable us to show our cars and how our service differs from the other options available. In short, you get the exact car you book, not a similar one, with no buses, no queues, no extra charges, so you're essentially on the road in under 10 minutes every time. Now, how does telematics help the car and away community? Well, we want to be the most assured and most transparent peer-to-peer car sharing community, and telematics is right at the heart of this. Through our partnership with Octo, we are using a very smart device called the Super Easy. It's quick to install and quick to remove and enables us to see how every car is being driven. This provides significant value for three core groups within our car sharing community. Firstly, our owners. They get an instant assurance that their car is being monitored and that renters are going to be driving with care. Secondly, our insurance provider, who gets insights to our driver behavior, meaning they can provide the best cover possible for the community. Furthermore, cars with these devices are protected if they are stolen. The devices allow cars to be recovered with an 89% recovery rate, which really helps to keep premiums to a minimum. The final group is renters, who have many benefits. Firstly, they benefit from the telematics, enabling the best cover insurance. Secondly, if there is a problem, the telematics means we can pinpoint their position and get help to them quickly. However, the main aspect of the telematics is that we are able to provide all renters with a driver rating and help them to improve this score as they go through their rental. In a similar way to many peer-to-peer businesses, people want to be seen as good citizens, and for the renters, achieving a great driver rating is a way to demonstrate this objectively. Using Octo, we generate a score which is through 5 different metrics: accelerating, braking, speeding, cornering, and day or night driving time. Whilst there is a clever algorithm in the background, we ensure the score for the renter is simple to understand. It is shown as a percentage, for example here, 79%. The data behind the scenes, however, enables us to identify what the driver is doing well and areas where they could look to improve. Using this information, we're able to communicate with the renter and guide them on their driving behavior. Now here, it is important that any communications with the renter is in a playful, enthusiastic and upbeat manner, in order that the advice is not overbearing. We can highlight areas where the drivers excel, e.g. you're a corner masterer, and also provide drivers with pointers to how their score can improve. For example, go smoother on accelerating and you could get a score above 80%. Using these insights means we can help renters be more aware, which in turn helps them to drive with more care. We're even looking at using the rating system as a way to reward great driving behavior. For example, if renters achieve a score of over 85%, they could get a 10% refund on their rental cost or money off their next rental. This would be a first in car rental and all enabled through Octo's smart telematics insights. Now, Octo Telematics is a great partner for Car and Away in supporting our ability to be the most assured and transparent peer-to-peer car sharing community. Using data to provide insights is both an enabler in building trust and improved driver awareness and safety. Brake already have a comprehensive program to support safer driving across fleets and individuals. The Brake Pledge has been running since 2001, providing a flexible driver training resource for companies that want to engage their drivers with positive behavioural change. There is a potential opportunity to collaborate further to enable more credible driver safety communications to our community, partnering with Brake and Octo together. This is something for the future, but right now I would like to thank you for listening and look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Andy. That was really interesting and great to hear more about Car and Away. As Andy did mention, we will be doing a Q&A towards the end, so please do use the chat box and raise your hand to ask any questions that you may have. Next up, we'll be talking to Andy Salter at DVV Media International about FreightShare Lab.
So, good day everybody. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a project called FreightShare Lab. It's often said that the safest vehicle is one that is stationary, or in the case of commercial vehicles, one that isn't being used to deliver freight or services to the economy. Our project, FreightShare Lab, is an Innovate UK part-funded project aimed at minimising the amount of empty or part-laden running by commercial vehicles, optimising those vehicles for the goods carried, and if successful, thereby reducing the number of kilometres driven by trucks and vans on our roads. This will have an impact on road safety. This is a research project seeking to extrapolate some of the mathematical and logistics modelling into real-life operational trials. My name is Andy Salter. I'm Managing Director of an organisation called DVV Media International. We produce magazines, websites and events for the commercial vehicle sector in the UK. I'm representing FreightShare in my capacity as the media dissemination partner for this project. A few brief words about the consortium partners. Route Monkey are an optimization specialist. Heriot-Watt University are our algorithm specialists. They're the brains behind this project. Transport Systems Catapult are our industry experts and data store specialists who have been focused very much on the business case associated with FreightShare Lab should it become a commercial proposition. And as I've said, DVV Media International, we're the publishers of the leading UK and German logistics magazines and newspapers, bringing market knowledge and route to market to the project. I'll give you an overview now of the project. As I said, arguably the safest vehicle is one that isn't actually being moved. It's also more efficient. If we can move the goods that are required every day by our economies on less vehicles, this will have a direct impact on the efficiency of the supply chain. There's been a long-held belief that efficiency and road safety gains could be possible if only shippers and the fleets carrying those goods could find a way to optimize the freight and the vehicles and eliminate empty and part-laden running. A recent computer modelling exercise carried out on behalf of the project by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development has indicated savings of over 20% could be possible if fleets and shippers integrated both shipments, vehicle and depot sharing, as it says here. That's the theory. FreightShare Lab seeks, via a series of real-life insights and trials, to investigate whether using the latest routing and optimization algorithms, it is possible to develop a technological platform which will allow freight shippers and carriers to share their loads and assets respectively and realise the promised efficiency gains. Anybody that's been involved in logistics will know we've been talking about this for years. It's the Holy Grail. FreightShare Lab is a project based in the UK initially, which seeks to solve this puzzle and hopefully unlock the power of the platform to bring efficiency gains to logistics. I'm now going to give you an overview of the key elements of the research project, demonstrate how it will work, and the potential for this initiative in the future. So who's it for? There's four main user groups we see for the project: small fleets, large fleets, the aggregators that are already active in the market, and shippers and consigners, what we call the beneficial cargo owners, those people that need their goods delivering to market. These should all benefit from the final project, many of whom should realise significant improvements in freight efficiency, and as we've said, with less driven miles, there should be a direct impact in improving road safety, which is obviously the main reason for the webinar. The research project and field trials will validate the magnitude of these gains. Computer modelling, as we said earlier, indicates that a 20% saving in carbon emissions should be possible through improved utilisation levels. How will the project work? We use an example from the electricity sector of demand response. And while freight is obviously a slightly different market, given the commodities being moved around, the principle remains the same. The first round of research for FreightShare Lab will be to understand all the tasks and criteria driving freight and fleet choices. In its simplest terms, the system will need to understand you can't carry petrol in a tipper truck, or you can't deliver cars in a tanker, and that a 44-ton articulated combination shouldn't be delivering parcels in the centre of London. When we understand all these rules, and the consortium partners have over 10 years' experience in this field with single customer operations, we can then start to match the goods to the transport, treating freight with the same liquidity as electricity, and multiple companies' trucks and vans as if they were a single fleet. This is a big project using big data, which could, if the vision is realized, shape the future of logistics. So the key elements of the platform are outlined here. We have two key strands of development: the technology to build the platform, store the data, and develop the algorithms, and the operational elements to work with the carriers and the shippers to understand the collaborative elements of data sharing, which will make the real-world trials possible. The data behind the service will be housed in a secure data store during the research project. This is managed by Transport Systems Catapult, one of our partners, and this is where the information about the vehicles and the freight will be managed. The algorithms developed by Heriot-Watt University will then interrogate the data and create the best match based on miles travelled, fuel used, and the capability of that vehicle to move those goods. The user will interact with the platform through a variety of different channels. The web-based platform will be simple to administer, and depending on whether the user is a shipper or carrier, opportunities will be presented to them in an easy-to-understand manner. There's some key issues here that we need to protect in terms of data integrity, competitor confidentiality, and the security of goods and services that are being managed. Obviously, at the end of the day, we want to improve the efficiency of the supply chain, reducing the number of driven miles, and as I say, having a direct impact on both the CO2 emissions of businesses and of the supply chain, and also road safety with less vehicles on the road. Trials that have already taken place in other sectors outside of this project have indicated that this is a real possibility. Basically, we're creating an interface to bring freight and vehicles together and create an efficient, optimized match. And there will be different ways for users to input that data, as it explains here. As a large company, you may upload your freight and asset vehicles into the system either automatically or using some form of manual process. We expect FreightShare Lab to develop integrations with enterprise resource planning, ERP, processes, and also transport management systems to seamlessly link its data into the platform. Finally, we're expecting to work with third-party optimization engines to enhance the services supplied. Much of this technical work is already being carried out currently by the partners, and we're ready for inputting of data over the course of the next few months. Our analysis to date indicates there are likely to be some immediate benefits in the platform, and they're outlined here, though the research project will tell us more. And it's worth underlining that this is a research project. As I'll explain shortly, it's a 3-year project, part-funded, as we've said, by Innovate UK. And we're very much open to flexing and developing the business model for the solutions that the supply chain and the economy requires as the project develops. In its purest form, we're looking to make it commercially attractive to the users, but there's obviously wider social benefits around safety and CO2, air quality, vehicle safety issues that need to be brought to bear. We're currently in the phase of getting project participants involved in the next stage of the process. So as I've said, a lot of the development work of the data, of the algorithms, of the interfaces is now in place. And we're now moving into fleet recruitment, where we're targeting project participants to get involved over a 3-phase process. Initially, we'll look at a discovery phase working with operators through discovery of shippers and carriers through a series of discovery workshops. Then we moved to data supply and into ultimately live trials to really see whether this platform can deliver the savings that we would expect. So if you as a delegate here, or you know somebody within your organizations or your connections that would be interested in participating in this project, then please make contact. We're looking for an initial commitment, as we said, in this phase 1 to really be part of a workshop to understand exactly how a business operates and how we can how the Freight Share Lab can play a part in addressing some of those initial issues. It's a 3-year project, as I think I've explained, and we're currently about 9 months into that program. We started at the start of January 2018, and we've now done a lot of this initial work, and we're now into the recruitment phase, moving into data sharing through, as you said, into live trials in the second half of next year, with then the project close and further dissemination thereafter. So that's my the key part of my presentation. I hope you found it useful, and that you can see the benefit in this, both from a driving supply chain efficiency, but also having an impact in the way that we can reduce the number of driven miles on the roads by commercial vehicles. Over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll start to have some data that we can share and demonstrate the impact of this platform on driven miles, CO2, and ultimately road safety. And hopefully I'll have the opportunity to share those with you at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Andy Salter there, discussing the Freight Share Lab. Unfortunately, Andy Salter can't join us for the Q&A this afternoon, but I am delighted that we are joined by our other speakers. So we do have Richard Green from Anglian Water, Graham Telfer at Gateshead Council, Edwin from Octa, who again are kindly sponsoring today's webinar, so thank you very much, and Andy Hibbert at Car and Away, and I believe we're also joined by his colleague Nick Horn as well, so thank you very much for joining us. There have been some questions come in for all of the speakers today, which is wonderful. So Richard, I will start off with you. What specific measures has Anglian Water taken to decrease the environmental impact of its fleet operations, and what material benefits has it seen as a result?
I think it's fair to say that we're starting on that journey. I mean, we've got an energy team with a serious number of projects going on, and they already made huge strides in reducing the energy that we use as a business and the costs we incur and the impact we have on our environment. But we're very conscious of the part fleet play in that, and we are now looking at the opportunities to introduce electric, for instance, and we've got pilots going on to that effect. But I think some of the presentations alluded to, we've seen some huge benefits in terms of fuel reduction through the use of telematics and managing driver behaviours that have already led to impact the benefits to our impact on the environment.
Brilliant, thank you, Richard. And I really liked the story that you said about how you'd reserved some car parking spaces for break members of staff who then turned out obviously to be travelling by on the train. In terms of, obviously you mentioned how you're starting to make more conscious decisions to take public transport. Is that something that is being rolled out organisation-wide when it is possible?
I think what we're doing at the moment is, as we work towards the development of our plan, what we're doing is promoting things like the Sustainable Pledge and the opportunities that are out there to do something than just walk out of your front door onto the drive and turn the key in the ignition. So we are encouraging people to walk, cycle to work where possible, get the train to other locations, again, where it's practical, and do anything or think about how they can schedule their working day, working week to reduce mileage they do in their cars or their vans. Now, we do 22 million miles a year in operational vehicles. And like I said in the presentation, we're bringing in a new scheduling system that will help us to reduce that. We claim 8 million business miles a year in cars. And what we're doing is promoting the alternatives to people to reduce that number. And we can do lots of other things in the future around encouraging people to do that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Richard. So Edwin, we'll be coming to you next, if that's okay. Obviously, the amount of technology on offer is vast. Are there any technologies in particular that you think fleet managers should be focusing on?
So, in my opinion, the most important technology it is possible to be used is obviously for the fleet manager, is obviously linked to the telematics in general, and more specifically on the possibility of analyzing the driving behaviors of the single drivers. Today is more and more used to have more drivers for a single vehicle, as the vehicles are also shared. And on the other side, obviously, the utilization of the vehicle to measure exactly the usage of the vehicle. And as a result of these two approaches, there are many predictive technologies that might be very useful for the fleet managers to anticipate risks and to reduce the total cost of ownership of their cars and their vehicles.
And how do you think fleet managers should be making the most of this technology?
I think that there are, in essence, three different objectives with different, obviously, dimensions. The first one, which is very, very tactical and is very linked to the total cost of ownership of the vehicles, is basically to make sure that the vehicle is correctly used and the insurance that is associated to the respective vehicles is correctly priced in order to be efficient with the overall costs of fleet. The second impact is to reduce, obviously, the number of crashes, the number of injuries, and more in general, to enhance a better way of driving of the single driver. In essence, the way a driver drives is a consequence of how the fleet is organized and how the general rules of the fleets are also given to the drivers, but also how the vehicles are kept in the best possible condition by the fleet managers. The third one is related to generally a contribution to overall mobility in terms of pollution and traffic. Obviously, it is an indirect effect of telematics, and it is an indirect effect of the fleet managers' approach to these technologies, but it's still very, very relevant, and it is the single contribution each single fleet manager can give to the community.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Edwin. The next question I'd like to ask actually goes to Graham at Gateshead Council. We've obviously implemented lots of procedures and lots of policies to become more sustainable. But Graham, what I would like to ask you is, what do you consider the single most important message to communicate to fleet managers about sustainable travel?
To drive the less constantly reassess, is it necessary to go out to drive? That was our first avenue to review comprehensively what we actually did with our vehicles, and a number of vehicles were moved on and they were dualed up. So some vehicles that were dedicated for overnight work and day shift work, they were dualed. So, and then we could look at a better model of utilization. And electric vehicles have a huge impact on the environment within an urban area. However, they do come at a cost premium, and petrol in its is now promoted as a cleaner fuel. And it's one piece of advice I would give is that I would explore that in its entirety first, because the price in some instances for electric vehicle can be £16,000 and a petrol vehicle is £8,000. That's a lot of fuel and for this, an acceptable low emissions. So that's a piece of advice I would give to anyone considering alternative fuels and going forward.
No, I'm really happy that you mentioned the cost which is entailed in obviously being sustainable. Do you think that price economically that does pose a barrier to companies to become more sustainable? And what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. The budget next week is discussing the opportunity to reduce the grant further. And if the grant was reduced or withdrawn, particularly for hybrid vehicles, then the take-up would be even further reduced. I think it's essential to maintain that, because some small companies, it's very, these are the Hollywood things to do, to go out and buy electric vehicles and to address their emissions. However, by reviewing driver training, which is more cost-effective approach. Everyone can take part. You don't have to go out and spend £16,000 by reviewing how you drive and driving less and utilising different methods of meeting as opposed to driving to meetings. These are all different ideas. Not one answer is one particularly mode of transport or telephone conferencing. It's to change your whole approach to it, but it doesn't have to be at a huge expense.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, Gateshead Council has made a lot of steps towards becoming more sustainable. How do you foresee the action you've already taken to encourage sustainable travel? How do you see that developing in the future?
Well, the grey fleet will be reduced even further across the whole activities of the council, and the intention is to eventually have no vehicles at all on fleet that are grey fleet. They will either be supplied either by electric or petrol, and that's the way forward.
Brilliant, thank you for answering those questions, Graham, much appreciated. We'll now got some questions for Andy and Nick at Car and Away. So the first question is, what challenges do you predict fleet managers will face in real terms when implementing this approach?
I think from a perspective, one of the first things is actually assessing the right timeframes to review and communicate with the drivers. So is there regular patterns, as in a daily score, weekly score, or is it possible as an alert-based event when they breach certain conditions? So that's one thing I think to consider, and actually getting it right. In doing so, of course, it's developing the most effective communication channel that's engaging and motivating. And as an example, texts that can be sent are very easy, but it's fairly one-dimensional and not as engaging, but they have key data points in them. But an application or an app-driven basis can be a far better way of using images such as badges for awards and pointing out areas to focus in. I think that's what makes it more interesting and engaging, and ensuring that the data stays controlled and meaningful and doesn't just become noise. I mean, if you look, I suppose, at areas of insurance that have done this very well, Aviva is a good example where they gamify this with drivers, which means high level of engagement and even sharing about where people are. So getting the community of drivers to share what they're doing and their successes, I think, is another great way. And I think that is exactly kind of at the core of what we see within the car sharing community, about the transparency, the social proofs, and indeed something more objective about how they're driving cars and how they're proud to be seen to be driving them well.
Thank you. Obviously, at the moment, telematics is mainly used to support young drivers and fleet drivers. Speaking of insurers that you've mentioned, as car sharing is a new area, do you think there is potential for this to expand to a wider market?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, bespoke insurance driven through telematics is a definite option. When you consider that, with companies like Octo advancing their technology and bringing the cost of telematic services down, it means it becomes more accessible. And if you look at how insurance is generally procured through individuals, it's a very simple structure driven by your age profile, by your claims history, by the location of you and your car, postcode essentially. So it's a very general approach to giving someone an insurance policy, whereas it's much better to have your own insurance based on how you drive the car and how you take care of the car. And again, you see companies trying to move into this now, whether it's a simple telematics through a mobile device, or whether they are simple devices installed into cars. It will enable proper bespoke insurance policies to be given to people, individuals, who can, of course, gain the benefits based on their good driving behavior. And I think that's something that will expand. And certainly as auto manufacturers are delivering kind of better connected cars when they're delivering them, new versions, whether they're electric vehicles and so on, I'm certain that this data will be actually included within that car in the future, enabling that data to be readily available for insurance companies to tap into, to enable that bespoke insurance component to be delivered.
Brilliant. So a lot of manufacturers are commenting, saying how car ownership is changing, and that they predict more than 50% of car owners won't actually own a car in the next 10 years. Where do you think that car sharing fits and supports with this message?
Well, I think car sharing will help support access to cars in order that existing journeys can be carried out with fewer vehicles. So, giving cars a sat idle, we see this all the time for, majority of their lives. 96% of the time is the figure that we use. These cars, once enabled, can be shared and used by other people. And I think it's a real change in mindset, really, about how owners of today see the usage of their cars, see their cars majority of the time sat idle, but yet they can feel the kind of weight and burden of that in their own pocket, costing on average £5,000 a year to own. We're talking 5 years from now about how owners will see, actually, I don't really need to own my particular car. With the amount of journeys I do and the type of journeys that I need, I'm quite able to get access to other people's cars through these sharing platforms. And I think it actually forms part of a more integrated approach to mobility in general, where actually I can get around using, whether it's electric scooters, whether it's walking, busing, running, that other panelists have talked about, or actually sharing a vehicle. That will drive a complete change in the way that people actually view owning a car and actually accessing a vehicle and all that they can get around. So I think there's a big component of car sharing that will drive that, but linked to other mobility solutions that become an integrated kind of solution for everybody.
Hi, it's Nick. I was just going to add to what Andy was saying, really. It feels like there are a lot of streams coming along, and we've talked about a few on here today in terms of things like setting up pooled ownership for fleet vehicles and company vehicles. We talked about ride sharing, we talked about car sharing, we talked about the information and the ability to access all of the vehicles. And then we have the whole piece around autonomy and the way that vehicles be able to drive themselves as well. And when you bring all of those streams together, the possibilities become enormous around enabling controlled access for controlled user groups, shared access for common groups, and shared usage of the assets for multiple different individuals at any one time. An end game looks absolutely vast in terms of the potential for reducing our footprint of everything that we're doing, from the manufacturer to the ownership, to the usage, to the sharing, and to the tracking and management of those vehicles. It's just a fantastic time to be involved in this space, I think.
Brilliant. And you mentioned obviously about reducing our footprint. I appreciate this might be a difficult question, but have you done any forecasting the impact that this would have on greenhouse gas emissions and what the impact may be of people car sharing?
Personally, for me, that is a very difficult question. We read lots of articles, and there's quite a lot of academic studies that are trying to do all of that work. And there have been some saying just sell less cars, use less cars because the manufacturer is really bad. Others saying make sure that you've still got to make sure that what you don't do is convert people from public transport across into private vehicle usage, because that would still be a net negative. So it's really a massive piece of analysis to do that. So I personally haven't done it, unfortunately. I'd love to get involved in it, but the question is that there's no doubt there are huge opportunities to reduce if this is done in the right way, and it's really about how we evolve and follow that conversation from here.
Brilliant, thank you. Andy, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to add?
No, I think I just echo what Nick's saying there, and from before, Nick made a good point there about we're about trying to take cars off the road because we don't believe we need as many to satisfy what people need them for. So if that means manufacturing less vehicles, that's great news. That's a big carbon footprint that's gone away, and actually using the vehicles we have that are sat around more efficiently, then that's fantastic too. I think equally over the course of time, Nick touched on autonomous vehicles, but we've got a big electric vehicle component which is arriving and coming at us rapidly, which is exciting because if we can enable electric vehicles to sort of come in, and I know the point about fuel economics versus electric vehicle costs, we're assuming that in time the cost of electric vehicles will come down. Those types of vehicles being shared make a very different kind of community around which I think we can thrive. And I think when Edwin talked about the very thing that's made us grow and prosper is creating these kind of bumps in the road for us now with different approaches to mobility and using electric vehicles as an example. It's a really exciting future, and if we can enable that through sharing and make those assets work for everybody, then yeah, we're excited to be a part of it.
That's brilliant, thank you. Time's up really now for questions, but I would just like to say a huge thank you to all of our speakers today. It's been really wonderful to hear the passion for sustainability and how obviously we can introduce this within the fleet industry. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you to those of you who've joined us. And finally, thank you very much to Octo Telematics for sponsoring today's webinar. We do very much appreciate it. On your screen now, you should be able to see some of our upcoming great professional events, which do include upcoming webinars and of course the pledge workshop, which was mentioned in quite a few presentations today. So thank you again, and I hope you can join us again for another webinar soon. Thank you very much.